Hi, I'm BJ, and this is the Arcane Alienist Podcast. Well, hello everybody. I'm back from the holidays. I hope everybody had a good time. Been kind of busy trying to get through. There's Christmas and then the New Year's, and then not long after New Year's is my son's birthday, and I'm now the proud parent of a teenager. So anyway, but we did some stuff for him for his birthday. So there's been a lot going on between that and having a regular full-time job and stuff. So I haven't had a chance to really put a podcast. And because I haven't been playing over the last few weeks, I didn't have much to talk about in terms of games. So here we are. On this episode, we're going to take a few quick calls, and then I'll have a couple of recaps of the games I have played since we've come back from Christmas. But I also have noticed that I published my first episode on February 1st of last year, and we're just a couple of weeks away from that, and we're also honing in on episode 100. So I could try to time it to where my 1 year anniversary episode is my 100th episode, or I could probably do them separately. So I'm going to put this out there for you guys to give me some calls and tell me, one, should I combine them? And what should they be about? If I do them separately, what should they be about? If they're combined, what should they be about? What do you guys want to hear me do for that? If you guys have any suggestions. So regular callers, frequent callers, infrequent callers, maybe some new callers. So yeah, give me a drop me a line and tell me what you think about that. So having said that, here we go with just a few calls that have been hanging out for several weeks that I have yet to respond to because I haven't done an episode. So let's take a listen to those.
Hey BJ, yeah, that sound quality on that last call was pretty bad. I guess the gist of it was using Yanogu in old D&D games, and I think the most epic, just to recap because it's probably hard to hear, the most epic time I used Yanogu was during the War of the Avatars in the transition from AD&D 1 to AD&D 2 in the Forgotten Realms. And one of the ranger in the party was a worshiper of Maliki. Got to meet his avatar. There was some Fade to Black stuff there where he became the consort of Maliki. So who knows what... I think I had plans to have like a son or daughter come up sometime. That was like a part god, part ranger guy. But there was an epic battle between the elves of the High Forest and the Knoll forces under Yanogu. Maliki and Yanogu fought, and the characters helped. And the players always gave the consort of Maliki a hard time after that.
That was Karl Rodriguez of the GMologist Presents podcast. Yeah, Karl, just thanks for recounting that story again. I got snippets of that from your last message, even with the sound quality. That sounds like a lot of fun. Sounds like a great campaign. The Avatar Crisis, the whatever you call it, the transition from first to second in Forgotten Realms, and it was a great idea. Epic, defined, really defines the Forgotten Realms in a lot of ways as a D&D setting. But that short message that you just left me was far more interesting than the the trilogy of novels they released. The ones that followed Kelemvor and Midnight and Cyric before they become gods, which is interesting because those are interesting characters. But those books were dull, and maybe it was just me. So great event, lots of great story. The premise of Baldur's Gate, the video game, at least the first two were tied to an outgrowth of the events of that, and there's some other great tie-in stuff, but man, those novels themselves were, not the best stuff in terms of novel writing that TSR put out. And I think even the authors have written other books since that were much better. So I don't know what they were doing there. Maybe they were writing by committee and just deciding one of them to the cover. I don't know. Anyway, thanks for the story. Yeah, as I'd mentioned before, Yunogu, old enemy of mine from my first ever D&D character, got to face off against Yunogu. So good to hear from you, Karl. Thanks.
Hey, BJ, Jason here. Thank you for your Christmas episode. Yeah, maybe once you get it rolling, you can do psychology on some of the monsters as well. You can do something like a gnoll, which is a cross between a gnome and a troll. That's got to be an interesting story to tell around the tree of family dinners, huh?
Thanks, Jason. That was Jason Connerly of the Nerds RPG Variety Cast, a regular caller for this show. Yeah, that'll be interesting to do a gnoll. I think that's really interesting that, gnolls are now sort of a beastmen type of bog standard D&D. They're anthropomorphic gnolls or demonic anthropomorphic gnolls, depending on which edition. But yeah, there's always that reference that the word evolved somewhere as perhaps a cross between a gnome and a troll. And I don't know. I'd have to go back and look at Chainmail and OD&D to see how they were originally described. But very quickly they become these sort of beastmen type of characters. But I like you, I remember that idea that they were a gnome and a troll cross, which I guess would just be some sort of gnome, dwarf, troll. Troll is in the old Norse sense. The ugly version of the fairies as opposed to the beautiful ones that the elves and the Alfar are. But I'll read up on that, and maybe we can spend some time on that in a future episode. Great suggestion. Thanks. Like I said, I'll also should have pointed out that's a timely suggestion from Jason, given that Karl was just talking about Yunogu, who is in sort of your default D&D lore, the demon prince of gnolls. So those two calls have more connection than I maybe originally let on there. So anyway.
Yo, BJ, welcome back and Merry Christmas, dude. I hope you're having an awesome day with family and friends and loved ones and all that stuff. Awesome food, man. I hope the year wraps up for you real smooth, and I hope you have a wonderful start to your 2022, dude. Speak to you soon. Peace out.
Joe, thanks for the well wishes. That was Joe Richter of the Hindsightless podcast. I hope you also had a great Christmas. I know you're a very talented cook, so I'm sure you've prepared the spread for your family. My cousin is a chef, and when we are able to get together, which we haven't been able to for the last couple of years, he prepares a wonderful spread. In fact, even when we were kids, he was always into cooking and stuff. By the time we were in our early 20s, he had pretty much taken over preparing Thanksgiving and Christmas dinner for us, and his job was to prepare the meal, and my job was to stand in and talk about comic books and D&D and Star Wars with him, and taste test things and then bounce any belts out of the kitchen so they wouldn't interrupt his work. So yeah, but unfortunately we didn't have his talented, and his wife is a talented chef too, but we didn't get to have Christmas dinner with them like we normally do. So it was on us to heat up a turkey and do some side dishes. But my wife's a pretty good cook too. And, I can make a mean tossed salad. So we had a good meal. We had a good time, and still got to have fun with the relatives that are here local and that we could spend some time with. And I did get to see my family a few days later for a brief visit. Of course, Omicron was firing up about that time, so we made them short visits. But anyway, I've been keeping up with your podcast. I know you went down to visit your family in California and made it safely back to Seattle. So take care, and we'll talk to you later. All right, well, let's recap my latest participation in Pathfinder 2E. This is the Abomination Vaults adventure path run by Karl Rodriguez. Jason Connerly is another player in that group, and then we've got a couple other players with us. I had missed the previous session, and so what they had really spent most of the time doing, they had gone back from the ruins to the nearby town and delved a little deeper into how to use the downtime rules for Pathfinder 2e in terms of establishing history and connection to people in the town. And so everybody has a kind of a contact and some resources they can draw on when they go back to town. So when we started up, Karl asked me what he thought my character, Dr. Eleazar, would be. He's a physician. He's a wizard. He's not a cleric, but he's also a physician. And I'd already thought that he would be at this library in town, which is also a temple to Saren Ray, who's a goddess of healing. So I figured he's kind of in residence there, studying and working as a healer. But the connection is with Rin, this tiefling elf that runs an oddities and curiosity shop and has always got weird and stuff. So I figured he's always over there, picking up specimen jars, hawking little knickknacks oddities that he's found, and looking for things that might help him in his research or his experiments and things like that. They keep teasing me that this NPC in particular is Eleazar's girlfriend. I've never actually confirmed that I have any interest in actually role-playing that or that that's what's going on. But I decided, I don't know if anybody else remembers, some of you guys are probably old enough and some of you may not be. Back in the 80s, it started with, I can't remember, the Taster's Choice is what they call it in the United States, even though it's a British company. I can't remember what they sell it under there, but they did, the commercial started in the UK, but they did US versions of them. Whereas there's this couple that keep running into each other at different times, I think they're borrowing like coffee filters or coffee from each other, and it's always advertising Taster's Choice coffee. But there's always this like unspoken, like, are these people flirting with each other? Are they ever going to get together? And it was a pretty successful ad campaign back in the 80s. So, and in fact, the guy from that, I can't remember the name of the actor, but he's been in a lot of stuff recently. He's in Ted Lasso as a recurring role right now in Ted Lasso, which is a great show if you guys aren't watching that. He was in, he played Uther Pendragon in the Merlin TV series that BBC did a few years ago. So anyway, can't remember the guy's name off the top of my head. But anyway, so that's a long story short to say. I kind of said maybe it's like those Taster's Choice commercials where everybody's just kind of around town is like, well, are they just friends or are they, what's going on there? And, the answer is never actually may never be revealed. We'll see. Anyway, so we established that. We didn't do any role-playing on that. We just kind of established that because also what had happened in the session I missed, after they had done that, they had gone back and explored the ruins a little bit, and so we just picked up where they had left off. This is a ruined keep that has, this lighthouse or this signal. They didn't go back and visit the haunt, which we assume is the big bad villain that the heroes of the previous generations past had come and defeated. We're poking around the periphery, so we come to a moat house, and it encountered a brownie. And so I think that's where we picked up as we're having a conversation with this brownie, and he says there's a shiny object in the next room that he would like. But there's some sort of creature in there that's described it as mean. What do you mean by mean? Well, the brownie went in there and this creature attacked him. So he says if we'll go get the shiny thing for him and bring it back, he'll provide us some information that he knows about the keep. So we make our way into the adjoining room. Before that, we check all the doors. There's a storage closet that's empty, and then there's some stairs going down. So I walked down to the bottom of the stairs just to see what was down there. And it came to an empty hallway with a door on either end. But Karl said that my character could hear some faint, kind of a moaning, not crying in pain or panic, but just someone kind of wailing like they're sad or they're grieved or grieving or whatever. So I go back up the stairs, tell them that. We decide there may be some people that need help, but since it didn't sound like they were actively being harmed, attacked, tortured, that just sounded like they were bemoaning their situation, we would go back after we got the shiny and got the information from the brownie. So we go around the corner, get to this next chamber the brownie has talked about, and what immediately happens when we get in there, we're attacked by this small construct. It's like some sort of it's built kind of like a raven, although the picture Karl showed us, it wasn't painted black, but it's definitely carved, kind of a mechanical construct to it just begins attacking, and despite the fact that it's the size of a raven, it's got this really sharp beak, and it immediately it's very fast, so even those of us who got to attack it before we could do anything, missed at a pretty good armor class. First thing it does, it pulls off a vampiric attack on Goblin de la Hood, which is Jason Gonerly's character, and so it drains some blood off of him, and in doing so, manages to we kind of piece this out by our response. It's giving itself temporary hit points, which is the way the vampiric touch spell works in D&D and Pathfinder. So the first few attacks we do get off on it really only are obliterating its temporary hit points, not actually damaging it. And it drops Goblin. We get him back up. And it turns on our Dwarven champion, which is the Pathfinder version of a paladin. He gets dropped. We manage to get him back up on his feet. And really, once we start hitting it, the fight then went pretty quick. But man, it was tricky at first. Our Oracle, the gnome, Oracle is remembers. We both rolled on Arcana. I didn't do very well. He rolled pretty well and realized this is a construct, and when we defeat it, we should. There's probably got a gem inside of this powering that would be magical and valuable. So when we do finally defeat the construct, this raven, and break it apart, we're able to get the gem out of it. And when I pick it up to do detect magic and try to identify more specifically what it is, it turns out I hear that same wailing and moaning from the gem. So I think, you know what? I bet there's a shelf full of these other gems downstairs. That's probably what I'm hearing is there's more of these things that maybe power more constructs. I don't know. So we get that. Turns out the shiny object is a silver looking glass. It's not magical. It's really not even super, super valuable, but it is shiny. So we agree to give it to take it back and give it to the Brownie. And he tells us that, and we had seen some stained glass windows outside on a chapel that's part of the remains, and then we'd seen some tapestries as we went down the hall in this building, both kind of conveying some kind of star in the sky and these agonizing spirits. It looks like maybe they're rising up from graves, or we're not completely sure what it means. But the Brownie is able to tell us that the witch light, I think that's tower, I think it maybe I may be confusing with something else, but this thing that glows that kind of lit up all of a sudden and freaked everybody out, which is why we're here exploring. That this used to use souls to fire some kind of arcane ray of death and destruction down upon people. And so now I'm sort of thinking, well, maybe these gems are not just to fuel more constructs, but they can also be, they're big ammunition for this kind of magical weapon of mass destruction. Anyway, so that's kind of where we wrapped up. We also figured out the Brownie decided he was going to stay around for a while as a sidekick. He says, I can fix things. I can be of help. He mends the little construct that we broke so that if we put a gem back in it, we can create it. If we know how it works, we could turn it into a construct. We also kind of sorted out between our arcane knowledge, the more we kind of thought about it and compared notes, that the construct is going to have the alignment of the person who created it. So this one was evil because an evil person had originally created it. It seems to be some sort of wizard or disciple of this evil sorceress or hag or whatever we're fighting. Created it so it was evil. If for say I as a wizard were to re-imbue it and kind of put it back into functioning order, it would take on my alignment, which is neutral good. Even if I use the gem that was already in there, the soul in the gem, trapped in the gem, this spirit is not necessarily evil. So we decided, we need to figure out if these spirits are in these gems willingly or if they've been trapped against their will. If they're trapped against their will, we'll set them all free. If kind of willing, like they want to be part of a magical construct, maybe we can pop one back in this thing and we'll have a good aligned, mechanical raven or magically mechanical raven. Anyway, that was kind of our thinking. So we just kind of stowed it in a bag, and we're going to explore further and see what more we can find out next time, which will be coming up this coming week. I'm also going to be joining, I think as of the day this podcast publishes, another Pathfinder 2e game that a friend of mine, Bobby, is going to run. This will be with some of my regular home play group. And I think I'm going to play an alchemist. I put together a half-orc alchemist, and then I kind of let it set, and the more I thought about it, I wasn't really happy with the character concept I came up with, so I may tweak it a little bit. I think I'm going to stick with alchemist, but I may come up with a completely different ancestry and idea for what kind of alchemist I want to be with that character. So I'll speak more about that after we get a chance to play. So that's my updates for Pathfinder. All right, we'll give an update on the 5th edition Ghosts of Saltmarsh game that I've been playing in. Again, this is one where I had missed a previous session because of the holidays, but when I was there last, we were just exploring this kind of extensive set of mines, there were undead, these souped up skeletal archers in there that we had fought. In my absence, the party had gone farther in. They fought some more of these things, and they had encountered an earth elemental. And so we pick up kind of where they had left off, just once again in the caves. And I think we kind of gotten as far. This was kind of the last set of chambers that had yet to be explored. So we're in a room. We go into a room, and we kind of, the full party gets in the room and is looking around, and two more of these earth elementals, which turn out to be some kind of grave elemental. They're infused with necromantic power, pop up. Skeletons start coming in from a side passage, and now there's a voice taunting us. And I think the DM had said they had heard this voice taunting them a little bit in the last game as well. So anyway, we have to fight these things. They're pretty brutal. I mean, I went down twice. Yeah. So they one kid, this wizard who's been an NPC in the party, got killed during this battle. But a couple of us went down, including me as a paladin, trying to put myself between this grave elemental and everybody else. And it's got this aura effect that if you start your turn in it, you have to save or take necrotic damage. And but we also had they had figured out from previously, and we kind of all figured out that's made out of stone. So thunder damage does extra. It's vulnerable to thunder damage, so I'm trying to smite it with a thunderous smite every time I hit it. So I did manage to kind of distract it enough to give other people get clear, and in position. But then I went down pretty quick because it got some good hits on me. So I'm down, and I got pretty close to dying. I had 2 failed death saves and 1 successful death save when the party's ranger managed to rush up and pull a potion down my throat. And of course, we're dealing with these skeletons, and I think we came pretty close to getting wiped out, but we managed to rally between some spellcasters whittling away and taking down the elemental, and then the rest of us turning on the skeletons. But anyway, so we said, we're going to go and rest up and regroup and backtrack. We know that whoever's behind this, who's been taunting us, is still somewhere about. We'll come back for him because, man, we were really hurting pretty bad. So we took a rest. I went ahead and used some hit dice and some lay on hands to get myself healed back up. But as we're trying to get out of there, the DM was sort of figuring out the path that this guy is going to get away. And we just so happened to pick a path that one of our characters saw him down a side passage. It's like, well, there he is. Let's get him. And we thought, well, we've come this far. Let's do it. So he's kiting. He's trying to get away from us. But we managed to keep up, just enough to kind of know where he's going and follow him. And that took a little while. We had to get a little bit of a chase scene through these these mine shafts. In fact, I think one of the spellcasters jumped in a mine cart and then used Gust, the spell Gust, to propel himself down the shaft so he could keep up the tunnel to keep up with him, which was a pretty good move. So we managed to chase this guy and finally managed to get him in a room where, at this point it's been a kind of a chase and we've just kind of been moving. Okay, he moves, the rest of us move. He moves, the rest of us move. We didn't really use the formal chase rules. It's just kind of moving around the board. We managed to get into a room where something triggered initiative. And I rolled pretty well on my initiative. A couple of us got the drop on him. But he was a pretty powerful spellcaster, necromancer. And I got to pull off one of the maneuvers that I've been dying to use. Is one of the reasons I chose the Oath of the Crown for this paladin. He has a channel divinity ability that basically issues a challenge. It's similar to the compelled duel spell, but I think it's a little more powerful. That basically you tell an enemy you're not allowed to retreat. You cannot willingly move 30 feet away from me, including that precludes teleporting or anything like this. So this wizard can't misty step away. They can't teleport away. They cannot move within 30 feet of me until they make a save. So he pulls out his wizard staff. He's got like a necromancer staff and blasts us all. I can't remember what spell he blasts us with, but of course now everybody's standing next to me. They get a benefit from my paladins or for their saves. We still took quite a good chunk of damage, but not enough to not enough to drop anybody this time. And of course, everybody else then got to go that hadn't gone, and they pretty much decimated this because, at this point, this is a wizard who's standing in place. He's cast his spell for the round, and, an angry mob of like a fighter and a rogue, and, just shoot him down with their ranged weapons, and somebody else is running up with a melee attack. And I was going to follow up with a melee attack on my next turn and try to smite him if he hadn't, but he dropped. So I think the DM was trying to save him and have him become a recurring villain, but we locked him down and trapped him, so that's kind of the way it goes. The DM was cool about that, though. So we finished that, and we went back and talked to the dwarves who had been given a writ from the king to operate this mine, the king of Keelan. We're in Greyhawk. And settle up kind of affairs with them. We paid a visit to a local druid who's the mother of one of the other party members. If you recall, I and the ranger kind of one night we were the only people playing, so we decided to scout out the mines without the rest of the party and realized how tough some of the undead were in there. Barely got out. Sent a message back to town for everybody to join us, and we stayed drinking with the dwarves and got completely, saving throws were required because we were drinking the good dwarven stuff. So the other party when we start doing this, and I'm like, guys, don't do that. So one guy gets exceedingly drunk, and so when we go pay a visit to the rangers in the party, his mother, this other character starts hitting on her, really making an embarrassment for himself and the party. So part of the things paladins can do is they can sacrifice 5 lay on hand points to remove a condition. So drunk in 5th edition is poisoned. I just tapped him on the shoulder and said, like, hey man, sober up. And he's instantly sober. And he's like, what am I? Oh, I'm so sorry. What am I doing? This is a really good group for role playing. I enjoy role playing with them because they really do get into the characters and adopt some of them, even affect some mannerisms. I mean, we're playing over Discord, so it's all voice, but they convey the little quirks and personality quirks in the way they role play and do a lot of speaking in first person, which a lot of the groups I play with don't do that, or they shift in and out of that depending on the situation. And this group kind of does that a lot, so I enjoy that about this group. Anyway, so that's kind of where we left off there, and we've played again this weekend. So I'll go ahead and just roll that recap in here, and we spent most of the time really just trying to decide what the next thing was. We didn't have any outstanding missions, and they decided they wanted to sail up to the port city of Blue, which is farther up the coast on the Flyness, and this is a city associated with piracy. It's the DM described it as almost kind of being like Nassau, if you've seen Black Sails. or Tortuga from as portrayed in the first Pirates of the Caribbean movie. But it's also heavily associated with slaves. I'm a paladin. I'm like, why am I going to visit a pirate city unless we're going there to clean up? But get this rumor of it's associated with slavers. So it might be worth going and taking a look at as a paladin. So we set sail. Our ship was attacked by a group of giant sharks on the way. And we got to pull out the new ship rules from the Ghosts of Saltmarsh for 5th edition. It's the first time I got to play it at the table, and it works pretty. It's pretty fun. So you've got the way. I really like the way 5th edition is handling vehicles, because there's not a mini game. There's not a separate set of rules. A vehicle is just statted out like a large creature. It's got an armor class. It's got hit points. It's got damage reduction. It's got vulnerabilities and resistances appropriate to its type. It's got a speed, and then it's got actions that it can do. Move. With your ships, usually it's just sort of attack based on whatever kind of siege engines or cannons or trebuchets or ballista, whatever you've got on the equipped on the ship, and then it gets a spot in the initiative, and basically everybody on the ship can sort of take individual actions. I'm going to go man a ballista. I'm going to go furl the sail. I'm going to go do whatever. I'm going to cast this spell at whatever we're fighting with during this naval battle. But when the ship's initiative comes up, whoever's been designated the captain's ship can issue some orders, and it assumes you've got crew of NPCs, and those NPCs can be assigned to oars or to repair or to whatever the case may be. And I'm not doing these rules justice. They're really elegant, and I'm excited to see them. We're getting hints that Spelljammers on the horizon. Maybe coming this year for 5th edition. So I'm really interested to see how they get Spelljammer into these rules, because they're really, if you can run a character and you can run a monster, you can run a ship or a vehicle. They've got some other kinds of magical vehicles that they've put in other modules as well, so it's not just the ships from Saltmarsh. So I'd really be interested to see how they're going to do the Spelljammer, but I'm getting kind of a tangent. Anyway, we managed to repel these sharks between the cleric and the wizard casting spells at us, and the rest of us leading the crew and firing cannons at them. And one character at the helm of the ship, moving the ship in certain directions with the ship's move. So it was neat to see those rules play out. And I know I'm not doing them justice. I imagine if I DM'd, I think I do a better job of explaining the rules for stuff when I ran the session as the DM and give you a peek behind the screen. But part of what I'm enjoying about this game is just being a player. And all I had to say was, I'm going to take 2 crewmen with me and go to this cannon and shoot it. We're gonna start shooting at this shark, and so it was a lot of fun. We killed all the sharks. We got away, and so I guess next time we pick up with this game, we will be in the port city of Blue, in the Greyhawk campaign setting for Ghosts of Saltmarsh. So that is my recap for that. Well, and that's all for this first episode of 2022. I want to thank Jason Connerly, Karl Rodriguez, and Joe Richter for their calls. I thank everybody out there for listening. Don't forget, drop me a message. Let me know what you think about the pending 1-year anniversary and 100th episode. Whether those occur together, separately, what would be good ideas for content. And I will. It's been a long stretch to get the last couple of episodes out. I hope to get back to a little more regularity now that we've kind of gotten through the holiday season and the new year and everything else going on. So take care of everybody. Thanks for listening. See you later. And that's it for this episode of The Arcane Alienist. I want to thank Dave Bone for the cover art that I use for the episodes. Check out ironseer.com. And the music is Come and Get It by Scott Holmes Music. Thank you for listening. Give me a call sometime through the Anchor app or at the Anchor website, and I'll be back in the future with another episode.